Think of your favorite modern superhero game. Think about what it is about this game that makes you enjoy it as much as you do. Now, what is it? Is it the fact that you get to play as a Marvel or DC superhero that you've enjoyed since you were a kid? Is it the fact that the story and combat are super smooth and rewarding? Or is it the entire concept of being able to become a superhero and subconsciously living a deep down childhood fantasy without realizing it? Chances are it probably isn't any of these. Your reasoning could be that the 2004 release of Catwoman was the only superhero game that your parents ever bought you, and therefore it would have to be your favorite. Regardless, it's almost guaranteed that most people do in fact have a favorite superhero game. Mine is City of Heroes. City of Heroes was an MMO developed by Cryptic Studios, a development studio that has gone on to create Star Trek Online, Magic the Gathering, and some other pretty notable games. This game was unlike anything ever seen in the world of MMOs. It allowed players to create an insanely customizable superhero that could be brought into the game world known as Paragon City. Everything from the colors to the superpowers and even the backstory of your character could be handcrafted by the player. The customization was completely unmatched, and it made the game feel like a one-of-a-kind experience for every single player who logged on. It had great reception, and was one of the best communities and most well-rounded MMOs that many people have ever experienced. It was an extremely successful game, but good things don't last forever. After many structural changes, lawsuits, and many other problems that would later show up, City of Heroes was shut down on November 30th, 2012. So this is when the question arises. What chain of events could possibly lead to the closing of such a beloved game? Was there a way to avoid this from happening? And is there hope on the horizon with the recently released fan-run City of Heroes server? We're going to be covering all of this and more in today's video, Why City of Heroes Died. In City of Heroes, you play as your own unique superhero in a place called Paragon City. You go around fighting aliens and villains and keeping the peace just like any other superhero would do. But this game made the feeling of being a superhero much different. Every single experience was unique and no one hero looked the same as another, so it felt personal to the player. And this was definitely due to the insane character customization in this game. I've talked about other MMOs and have bragged about how great their character customization was, but it's absolutely nothing compared to what's experienced in City of Heroes. You can customize literally everything with no exaggeration. Say you want to change your belt, for example. You can change the shape of the belt, the color, the buckle, the fabric, and special attachments that hang off of the belt. You want a new mask? Oh, well, you can choose from half mask, full mask, hoods, and much more. But you can even change the material and shape of every single variation of mask. You can throw some special goggles on that you can also change the style and color of. You can change the way the mask fits, and you can even add special effects that radiate from the mask. I'm not lying when I say that every single character was one of a kind. And looking at it, that's where this game really stood out. There are a lot of role-playing MMOs around, but none of them really make you feel like you're a unique and personalized character. In most of them, you just follow a template and can have a little bit of customization, but you can't really create your own unique experience. But in City of Heroes, you could even create your own story, create a public description of how your character came into existence, and change the effects and motions of every single move and attack. I played on the fan-run server of City of Heroes that's still up today to get footage for this video. I customized both a villain and a hero, and these are the results I got. As you can see, they're entirely different. One of them is a 4-foot-tall samurai-type hero who doesn't really look like a hero and fights with a giant sword and melee combat. The other is a hooded villain that fires special auras and spells at people. Now, I wasn't the best at choosing cool superhero and villain names, but you have to admit, they definitely have appearances that match their careers. And while this aspect of City of Heroes was great, it was nothing compared to the gameplay. The map was split up into different zones that were separated based on difficulty. On the hero side of things, you started out in Paragon City, which seemed to be the pretty safe and tame area of the world. But as you did missions and leveled up, you would be able to travel to other regions that were more dangerous and less sheltered than the original area. I personally really like the look of Paragon City. It feels and functions pretty much like a real city, and it's pretty easy to navigate around and do what you need to do. But as you get outside of this main region, things are a little bit different. These areas feel desolate, war-torn, and dangerous, and you really don't want to spend a lot of time in them. And there's a reason why you don't want to spend a lot of time in them. According to the pages and pages of lore behind this game, Paragon City has a deep history. It was a prosperous and beautiful city until war broke out between a group of aliens and Earth. The aliens used it as their home base and destroyed a lot of it in the process. As they were leaving, the people of Earth used some of the alien technology to build walls that separated and protected regions of the area. These walls created a force field that kept citizens of Paragon City safe from outside invaders, but it also separated everything into regions. You can go around between these zones fighting villains and aliens. You start out fighting against local thugs and small, fairly weak bad guys, and eventually move on to more powerful threats. You can fight with a variety of different attacks and choose a playstyle that fits your hero. There were actually quite a few options, including tank, melee, ranged, crowd control, support, and even a pet summoner. Each of these playstyles even had their own archetype, which allowed players to determine which powers are available during their play as their chosen character. Each of these power sets was different and created an entirely different type of gameplay. For example, on my first character, I went with a ranged playstyle and chose the Corruptor archetype, since I was a villain. With this power set, my villain had access to the elements, allowing me to kill enemies with fire, ice, radiation, and darkness. Plus, combined with the starting attacks that I chose to have unlocked, it created a great experience with a playstyle that matched the backstory of my villain. As for my 4-foot-tall samurai hero, I chose an entirely different playstyle and archetype, and it actually felt like an entirely different person and maybe even a different game. Originally, the game launched as just a hero-based game, but because I have mentioned the aspects of villains, I'm going to quickly mention City of Villains, the expansion that would later come out to the game. City of Villains added a new region, new gameplay mechanics, and a completely different storyline. I'm not going to go into detail about this, but just picture the original concept switched to a villainous side instead of a hero one. There were also some other things added as well, but this is kind of just to give you the gist. This expansion made it to where you could be a bad guy if you wanted to. But you couldn't be one forever, not because you would die, but because the game would die. So how did that happen? The story of the development of City of Heroes begins in the year 2000, when two friends known as Michael Lewis and Rick DeCon decide to create a company. This company would be a game development company known as Cryptic Studios, and their first project would be a superhero MMO. As stated by an article written by Forbes, Lewis and DeCon had an initial investment of over $7 million, so it wasn't necessarily a small project. A lot of back-end and behind-the-scenes stuff was being worked on around this time, and the project stayed pretty much silent until September 26, 2001, when Cryptic Studios officially announced City of Heroes. From what they described, this upcoming game was extremely ambitious, especially for its time. There were a few screenshots released at the time, and these, combined with some opening statements by the team at Cryptic, created a lot of buzz around this game. These screenshots were pretty simple, and looking at them compared to teasers of modern video games, they really didn't seem like much. But apparently that wasn't the case back in 2001, and according to a lot of old fans, these screenshots were pretty exciting at the time. Fast forwarding to January of 2002, IGN was able to conduct an interview with one of the lead game designers, which told some more information about what the game world would actually be like. This actually gave away a ton of information, and it made it seem like the game was coming along quite well. A trailer came out during E3 in 2003 showing more about the gameplay, and it was a really well put together trailer. It was super exciting and things were looking great. But behind the scenes, that wasn't really the case. By 2002, the development team was more than 18 months behind schedule, and everything was extremely unorganized. At this point, the game was full of 480,000 lines of code, but many of them were extremely messy and unnecessary. These organization issues caused some of the developers to go off on tangents and create projects of their own within the game, and they would add things that they personally wanted to see without getting proper verification. Everything was kind of a mess, and there were no bad intentions, but it ended up creating a game that was overly full of choices and created large amounts of confusion for the player. Because of this, Lewis stepped up to take full control over the development team and ended up firing Rick DeCon and tasking him to work on City of Heroes comic books. From this point, the game was simplified and the problems started to get fixed. Cryptic decided to use a Korean company known as NC Soft to publish and release the game. A beta test was launched in early 2004, and players got to experience the game for the first time ever. It started around February, and by April there were tens of thousands of players testing out the game and helping the team discover and fix any issues with it. Pre-orders opened, and anyone who purchased the game before launch would get access to this beta. The initial game cost around $50 for the base part of it, and then an extra $15 a month to use the servers. So looking at it, it wasn't a cheap game, especially compared to other MMOs. So the question is, was it worth the price? Well, originally, you got quite a bit with the purchase of the game. The lead developer mentioned that there were over 400 hours of content in the game at launch, which were designed in a way that split it up with 75% fighting, 25% narrative and story. It was a good mix with a good formula, and it helped to keep people interested and entertained. And on top of this, there were lots of in-game activities and events that would occur for a limited time, allowing the player to experience something unique with every single session. For example, there was a huge alien invasion event to kick off the launch of the game. At launch, the reviews were really coming in strong. Within a few weeks, City of Heroes already had an 85 on Metacritic, and everyone really seemed to be enjoying it. In fact, the game received over 100,000 paid subscribers within the first 2 weeks of launch, and it sat at the top of the game charts for most of the beginning of 2004. But Cryptic Studios needed to stay on top of what they were doing to capitalize on all the new players, so they began rolling out big updates pretty fast. For example, their first update came 62 days after launch, and it changed quite a bit with the game. It added hours and hours of new content, upped the level cap, fixed a lot of bugs, and much more. It's really impressive that a game studio would be this quick to release new content, because modern games tend to lack in this area. The updates kept flowing in, but even with all of this, there were bigger things being worked on in the background. Things that were the size of an entire new game. At this point, in August of 2004, the first major edition, City of Villains, would officially be announced. But before fans could get really excited, some bad news was also discovered. In November of 2004, someone decided to sue both Cryptic and NCSoft over their character creation mechanic. That someone was a small little company known as Marvel. They claimed that City of Heroes was infringing on their property by allowing players to create heroes similar or identical to the Marvel superheroes, basically saying that by giving players the ability to do whatever they want, they were infringing on their copyright. Being sued by Marvel sounds like a pretty serious situation, but fans speculated that the real reason this was happening was because of a planned Marvel MMO, not because City of Heroes was actually infringing on Marvel's copyright. Regardless, it ended up being dismissed, and the threat of the game closing down disappeared. For now. Things continued, and City of Villains launched in October of 2005. City of Villains was both an expansion and a standalone game, and it also had positive reviews with an 82 on Metacritic. This update was huge, and it added entirely new villain regions, bases that you could create, new missions, new powers and archetypes, and a lot more. It was honestly an amazing update. But believe it or not, this was just the beginning of what City of Heroes would become. Fast forwarding to the end of 2007, some major structural changes would occur within NCSoft and Cryptic Studios. Cryptic decided to sell its remaining share of City of Heroes to NCSoft, who now had 100% ownership of the game. Development would now be transferred to the company's newly formed California studio known as NorCal Studios, which would later be renamed to Paragon Studios. And even though this was a big move, things began to decline a bit for NCSoft. NCSoft was a Korean company that had operations in quite a few other countries. With a lot of rapid expansion, they had increased revenues but were having decreased profits, meaning they were making less money. Right after this, City of Heroes began to receive in-game advertisements posted on billboards around Paragon City. These advertisements came out of nowhere, and even though they could be turned off in settings, this move did upset quite a bit of people. People complained that the price of the membership should be cheaper if they were going to include real-life ads in the world, and it just sat wrong with a lot of the community. But apparently it didn't help NCSoft with their decreasing profits, and things decreased even further until they began to consolidate in their Western markets and simplified their operations. Because of this, they laid off around 70 to 90 employees in February of 2009. And while it's kind of sad that people lost their job over this, the restructuring in the West seemed to help NCSoft as a whole. And after the release of one of their flagship games, their Q2 profits of 2009 were up 451%. So things began to look great again. Looking forward to 2011, City of Heroes would receive the biggest and most exciting news in the history of the game. It was going free to play. This news did also strike some people wrong, but it was certainly a good move for the future of the game. At this point, it was aging quite a bit, and in order to attract a new fan base, there needed to be some changes. So, the free-to-play model was released with an option for a VIP membership if people wanted to pay. Free members still had the ability to create up to 2 unique characters and level up to level 50, so it wasn't like it was super limited for them. Realistically, not a lot changed, but it did have a big impact on the future of the game. For the most part, people didn't really seem to mind this change, and NCSoft definitely didn't mind it. In fact, it helped City of Heroes soar once again, with an increase of nearly $12 million in revenue for the game. $12 million sounds like a lot, but apparently that meant absolutely nothing to the company. As I've said before, NCSoft is a Korean company, with a primarily Korean market. Since City of Heroes was an American and mainly Western-based game, it was something entirely new to NCSoft. The game was doing considerably well in these regions, but it struggled drastically in Asia and most of Europe. The company made hundreds of millions of dollars from many of their other games, including Guild Wars and a bunch of other MMOs, but City of Heroes was old, and while it was making them money, it was just a drop in the bucket, or the ocean, compared to what these other games are making them. Even with a large increase in revenue from switching to the free-to-play model, the game simply wasn't worth their time. Because of this, without hardly any warning, the company wanted to get out of owning the game before it ultimately went under. Paragon Studios tried to negotiate a deal with NCSoft to purchase the game from them and become a separate non-affiliated company, but these negotiations didn't really work out. The community knew absolutely nothing, but the team at Paragon knew that their one and only project, City of Heroes, was about to disappear if they couldn't do something. The game was aging, and NCSoft wanted to get rid of it, and there was nothing that anyone could do. It didn't even matter that it was making them money, it wasn't enough money, especially compared to their bigger titles. Within one day after negotiation deals fell through, Paragon Studios was closed. Directly after, on August 31st, 2012, a farewell message was posted by Paragon, officially announcing that NCSoft has decided to close City of Heroes. It read, "To our community, thank you. Thank you for your years of support. You've been with us every step of the way, sharing in our challenges, encouraging us to make City of Heroes better, more than everyone else thought it could be. We couldn't have come this far without you. I implore you all, focus on the good things of City of Heroes and Paragon Studios. Don't dwell on the how or the why, sorry about that, but rather join us in celebrating the legacy of an amazing partnership between the players and the development team." At the end of this message, it was announced that the game was set to close on November 30th, 2012. There was set to be one last farewell, and then suddenly, 8 years of friendships, creations, and memories would be gone forever. The community was devastated, and they tried to do anything possible to keep this closure from happening. They rallied, made petitions, and came together one last time to represent their beloved games in Paragon City. In order to try to get NCSoft to see the potential in this community, a large group began to assemble in what was known as the Unity Rally. Thousands and thousands of players with years of history in the game assembled in Atlas Park to protest the closure. The community tried and tried, but NCSoft ignored them and continued with their process of closing the game. Finally, as planned, on November 30th, 2012, the game officially closed its servers, and thousands of people witnessed a major aspect of their life turn into a black screen and error message, and everything was gone. Development had shifted to their newest and biggest upcoming title, Guild Wars 2, so they had no interest in little old City of Heroes. And the game stayed like that for a long time. But we're not going to end this video on a sad note. There is hope, and a lot of it. There's a huge community of City of Heroes fans who's assembled together to keep the game running. There are a few different projects that have helped to resurrect this amazing community, and I've experienced some of them. These communities are a great group of people with an unyielding passion for City of Heroes, and I love seeing what they've done to bring back the memories of thousands of people. I'm excited to see what this will bring to the table, and I look forward to the future of City of Heroes. So I just wanted to say thank you to the community, and thank you for all you've done. Your guys' passion for this game is going to allow a ton of people to experience what it was like. But anyways guys, that's going to be it for today's video, so I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sure some of you guys are familiar, but if you're not, I've officially launched my own line of merch. I wouldn't call it merch, I'd call it apparel, because it's not really like garbage YouTuber merch like everybody else has. The apparel line is called Nostalgic, and all of the designs are based off of popular gaming and pop culture references from the 90s and 2000s. And the whole theme behind the company is nostalgia. If you do happen to purchase any, feel free to send me a screenshot or a picture on Discord or Twitter, because I'm actually giving out custom Discord ranks to anybody who purchases the apparel. Also, one more thing, follow me on Instagram. I officially made it public, at RoboKast. It's brand new, so if you want to stay updated, follow me on there as well. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys next time, and peace.